Questions and criticism surrounding bin Laden's controversial burial at sea continue to emerge. Now, according to officials, after being taken to an aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea, bin Laden was given an Islamic ceremony that lasted about 45 minutes. Now, today, White House Press Secretary Jay Carney provided a narrative of these controversial events.
Aboard the USS Carl Vinson, the burial of bin Laden was done in conformance with Islamic precepts and practices. The deceased's body was washed and then placed in a white sheet. The body was placed in a weighted bag. A military officer read prepared religious remarks, which were translated into Arabic by a native speaker. After the words were complete, the body was placed on a prepared flat board, tipped up, and the deceased body eased into the sea.
Now, reports indicate there is video of the burial and that it may be made public, but what critics are most angry about isn't the lack of visual proof, but rather the ceremony itself. Now, my next guest calls it a case of sensitivity gone too far. Joining me now with reaction, South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who is also a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Senator, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Sean.
I agree with you. Sensitivity, 45 minutes, his body's clean, he's put in a shroud. It's translated into Arabic. I don't see that the victims of 9/11 had the consideration from this evil murderer. Why would we do this?
Beats me. I don't think he was a good Muslim. I don't think he was a good human being. But here's my concern. The president made the right call by sending boots on the ground to go in and get the guy. You could have bombed him from the air, but we could never prove we got him, right?
Right.
So the president did the bold thing to send in the SEALs to make sure that we actually get the guy. We want to prove to the world we were successful. Release the photos. I know it's a bit controversial, but you had the president of Pakistan today suggest, why don't you release the photos? So I think we have to release the photos, and rather than dumping him in the ocean within 4 or 5 hours, we should have kept the body, in my view, and have some independent testing, have a Scotland Yard person or some ally come in and do their own DNA testing so we could prove to the world we got the right guy. That's what I was wanting to do. I'm more worried about our national security than I am religious sensitivity when it comes to bin Laden.
I agree with you. I think there may be deep regret in the end that they dumped this body because there are already a ton of conspiracy theories in the Muslim world. There are tons of doubters. The Taliban is saying there's no proof of his death. And, experts are questioning even the DNA identification, and they won't release the pictures immediately, which is people are going to say, well, now they're altered.
Right. That's unsustainable. The president was right to think about proving to the world we got him.
I agree. That was a gutsy call.
Right. But continue that thought process. If you do get him, then make sure that you can prove to the world beyond a doubt that he is dead. And one way to do that is to hold the body, the ultimate evidence, this is a historic event, and have people say, I'm not part of the American government. I was there. I conducted my own test. I saw the body myself, and I validate what the United States government is saying. There's no doubt he's dead, but it would have been a continuation of a good idea. And the reason we didn't do it, apparently, is we were worried about a 24-hour burial rule. We're at war with people who are not good Muslims. These are not good Muslims.
I agree. He killed Muslims. I mean,
yes, he killed more Muslims than he's killed anybody else.
I have no doubt this was Osama bin Laden. I don't have any doubt.
He is deader than a doornail.
Granted.
But people will suggest that's not him, and we have a chance here.
Cindy Sheehan sent those the other day. But now we're going to have the birthers and the deathers. Where's the death certificate? Where's Donald Trump? He's going to be asking for the death certificate.
And you could have had somebody look at the body, independent of us, somebody we trusted, to verify what we did. And, the operation was a great success. In the future, if you're listening out there to the administration, put our national security interests ahead of anything else.
This is sensitivity run amok, and I think I think there's a belief on the left that we can placate people that want to kill us. All right, here's an area of disagreement, though, I have with you. You said this is no time to celebrate waterboarding, which apparently Leon Panetta is now saying, and others are saying, and the timeline seems to show, contributed to all the intelligence that led to what happened on Sunday night. Why would you be against that?
Well, I believe, I've been a military lawyer for 30 years. I just believe that technique doesn't serve our nation well. I believe in enhanced interrogation techniques that should be classified. My beef with President Obama is that within 2 days of taking office, he outlawed the CIA from using enhanced interrogation techniques in the Detainee Treatment Act that I helped write. The only techniques available to us are the Army Field Manual. They're online. I don't believe waterboarding takes us down the right road, but you should have classified enhanced interrogation techniques available to the CIA. The CIA does not interrogate terrorist suspects since Obama's been in office. That will come back to bite us.
But that's the point. And this is what I was discussing with Secretary Rumsfeld. Without the interrogation techniques, the black sites, enhanced interrogation, we wouldn't have had the success. So in my view, President Bush deserves as much credit. And I give the president credit for being gutsy for what happened Sunday. But liberals can't seem to do that. They don't want to. And this is the one time it's not George Bush's fault. It's shocking.
Well, no, let me tell you, here's my view of what we should do. We should have classified techniques available to the CIA that are beyond the Army Field Manual that will get good evidence within our values, and the enemy should never know what's coming their way. When you take the CIA out of the interrogation business, you're putting our nation at risk for no higher purpose.
Well, remember, President Obama was telling our sworn enemies about our interrogation techniques. Administration
Why do you
officials
put it online? Why do you advertise to the enemy, here's what we're going to do and nothing else? It makes no sense.
And they were giving Miranda warnings to enemy combatants. I got to run. Unbelievable.
Thanks for having me.
And coming up, Karl Rove tells us if he thinks the White House should release bin Laden's proof of death. Birthers, are deather conspiracies emerging? More on Hannity straight ahead. And tonight, the White House is still contemplating whether to release pictures of Osama bin Laden's body following this raid. CIA Director Leon Panetta, during a TV interview, hinted that a release of a photograph might be imminent.
I don't think there was any question that ultimately a photograph would be presented to the public. Obviously, I've seen those photographs. We've analyzed them, and there's no question that it's bin Laden. The bottom line is that, we got bin Laden, and I think we have to reveal to the rest of the world the fact that we were able to get him and kill him.
And joining me now with reaction, the author of the bestseller Courage and Consequence, Fox News contributor Karl Rove. Brother Rove, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Sean.
Well, Jay Carney said today there are sensitivities about the appropriateness of releasing this. So we got the controversy over the photos. Then we've got the body controversy. Here the body is washed. It is put in a shroud. There's a 45-minute ceremony with Arabic interpretation. All of this seems to be predicated on a false notion that the supporters of bin Laden who hate us are going to like us somehow because we treated the body well and we respected their customs after we put a bullet in this guy's brain. I find that logic perverted.
Yeah, I'm not certain that's the logic. I think the logic is not that supporters of Osama bin Laden will be comforted by the way in which he was buried, but that Muslims who have no truck with bin Laden but are religiously observant would appreciate the sensitivity with which the body was handled after it died. I think we're more interested, if you will, less in the jihadist hiding out in Yemen than we are with the peaceful Muslim in, say, Indonesia. So I'm less worried about the burial. I think we kept ourselves from being criticized for handling the body, anybody, in a callous way by doing that. But let's not. The photograph's an interesting argument for me. First of all, Sean, let's not kid ourselves. Releasing a photograph is not going to keep the nuts inside the Islamic world from believing that it might not be bin Laden. Remember, look, Al-Qaeda's spokesman has called bin Laden a martyr and said that they will attack the United States and the West in retaliation for his murder. Yeah. Now, what kind of proof, if they're not going to be convinced by bin Laden's own mouthpiece that he's dead, releasing a photograph, let's not kid ourselves. If we release a photograph, it's not because it's going to somehow convince people that he's dead. Even his own compatriots have announced that he's dead. That's why they want to come back and hurt us in retaliation for his death. It's because we want to demonstrate to the jihadists and to the Islamic world that we're capable of taking out their leaders in a very brutal fashion, as this necessarily was.
I think this is a huge vindication because, in spite of polls after 9/11, everybody supported going after them, but there was really two people, and I would include you as a third, but in government, President Bush and Vice President Cheney. to their own detriment in terms of public opinion polls. They stuck by their guns. They stayed with the issue of rendition and the issue of enhanced interrogations. Right. This would not have happened but for those policies and that were implemented by President Bush. Do you think, as I do, that he deserves as much credit for the success Sunday as President Obama for making the gutsy decision to do it?
There were 7 important policy decisions made under Bush that made Sunday night possible. First, treating these people as enemy combatants, not as criminals who had to be Mirandized and had a right to shut up. The policy of rendition, of taking them off the battlefield and putting them in dark places where we could deal with them in a humane but nonetheless tough way. Enhanced interrogation techniques. With all due respect to Senator Lindsey Graham, whom you had on earlier this evening, we now know from numerous press reports that enhanced interrogation techniques of at least al-Libi and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed help lead to the code word, the code name of this courier. Military tribunals, having military tribunals in place so we were not under a requirement to engage in, quote, a speedy trial, but could milk these people for as much intelligence information as we could. The presence of Gitmo. You heard from Don Rumsfeld, who touched on a very important point. Under Don Rumsfeld, as Secretary of Defense, he went to transform the military and greatly increase the capacity and the numbers and the funding for our special operators, of which our SEALs are one of several units. And I have a personal relationship with a lot of the SEALs and SEAL Team 6, and they are very impressive people. And finally, intelligence reform, which cut down the walls that separated our civilian and military, and even within the intelligence community, separated intelligence agencies from cooperating with each other. We now know the CIA and the Geospatial Agency and other intelligence agencies were all part of this effort to track down, to go from the courier's nickname to what his real name was, to who he was, to where he lived, to what he did, to surprise, a compound in Abbottabad that harbored Osama bin Laden.
See, I think we need to have another debate in this country about rendition, about black sites, about enhanced interrogation. And I've got to wonder if a president that was so reluctant to say war on terror, overseas contingency operations, a president that told our sworn enemies about our interrogation techniques, a president that was going to give a civilian trial to KSM, a president that offered Miranda warnings to enemy combatants on the battlefield. You got to wonder, do you think President Obama learns from this that George Bush was in fact right, that this led to this victory, albeit 9.5 years later, but America found him, and it's a message to every terrorist around the world? Do you think he learns?
He could be so gracious, and in being gracious look so much bigger if he were to acknowledge that these policies put in place by his predecessor and reluctantly carried forward under his administration, some of them, most of them, helped lead to this day. But he can't bring himself to do that. I'm sorry to see my president not able to do that, but he just can't.
All right, Karl Rove, thanks so much for being with us tonight. We appreciate it.
Sean, thanks for having me.
This is the one time that George Bush didn't get blamed.
Well, that's because a good thing happened, and the administration probably didn't want to blame him for a good thing.
Yeah, everything else, if the dog bites, bee stings, if you're feeling sad, that's all George Bush's fault. Just ask President Obama. Yeah. All right.
And we, as the president said on Sunday night, we, in a paragraph full of we's and I's, we got the Taliban. I don't remember him being in office in 2002 and 2003, 2001 and 2002.
All right, Karl Rove, thanks for being with us. And coming up, we're going to take a look at the extremists within the Muslim community who are now condemning the killing of Osama bin Laden. For that and much more, coming up straight ahead.